Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's ranking Star Trek's science/ops officers. This video is a part of a series of videos where I take a position or a profession that is common amongst the Star Trek shows and the characters who run that position and rank them from my personal opinion of which one is best at their job. Well, starting with which one is least best at their job to the one that is best at their job. This started as a Patreon requested series, but I'm kind of taking over now because I want to. My completionist side is sort of kicking in, and I want to finish and do all the different positions. I did captain, first officer, doctor, engineer. Those are the more sort of obvious clean cut ones, and now I'm getting into some of the more gray areas because not every show had the exact same positions. But I decided to sort of combine science officer and ops officer, and this is not to be confused with Chief of Operations, which was Miles O'Brien. He was an engineer. That was very clear. But ops officer like Data or Harry Kim, who's there operating the ops, and they basically act as a as a science officer. So I decided to put them in this category as well. So first, let me name the 7 characters that are eligible for this list that I will be ranking. Starting with, of course, Spock, then Data, then Jadzia Dax, Harry Kim, T'Pol, Michael Burnham, and Agnes Jaradi. Now, so Spock was actually, he's also in the first officer one, and so was T'Pol, but they're both also science officers, so they get to be included in this one as well. And we got Michael Burnham from Discovery. I don't know if science officer was her official position is like exobiologist, which is a bit very specific. And I don't know if she's really functions as a science officer. She kind of functions as doing everything. Even she functions as a first officer a lot, even when she isn't. But as I said, she wasn't eligible for that one. So, I want to toss her in this one. Science officer, it seems where she fits the most. Agnes Jaradi, of course, from Picard. I'm including some of these Picard characters, even though it's not a Starfleet ship, but it's the main ship we follow in the show, La Sirena. And she was more specifically a cyberneticist, but she kind of functioned in that regard as a science expert, as that was very that particular field was very relevant to the story of Picard, so I decided to throw her in there as well. So again, this is ranking them from how good I think they are at their job, not how much I personally like the character or how much I think they add to the story or how well I think their character was explored. None of that. Mainly just how good of a science/ops officer do I think this character is. So we'll start at the bottom of my list, which is Mr. Harry Kim. Now, if this was which character I like best, he would rank a lot higher because, a lot of people seem to hate Harry Kim. I've seen a lot of Harry Kim hate, which I disagree with. I actually think the writers often misused him, especially Burnham, the fucker who refused to promote him even when the actor was begging, why am I still an ensign? He's like, oh, someone needs to be ensign. That's the stupidest thing ever. But I'm not judging it based off of how much I like the character, as I already said. It's how effective of a science ops officer they are. And let's face it, as much as I like Harry Kim, he wasn't that good of an ops officer. I mean, he pretty much did the bare minimum. He was like, ooh, Captain, here's this. He never came up with any inventive solutions to save the ship or any scientific theories or never really stood out in the crowd, let's say. I mean, the few times he did stand out in the crowd is the few times he like actually took a command position. He never stood out as a science-y type character. So, Harry Kim, sorry man, you're at the bottom. And then we'll get into my number 6, which is Jadzia Dax. Now, this is getting a bit harder because I do like myself Jadzia Dax. And she, again, this is another character who kind of functioned. I mean, she was introduced as a science officer in season 1, and that was sort of her main function. But then in later seasons, I feel like she started taking more of a tactical position. She was the helmsman on the Defiant, so she was more of a pilot, and then served more as an advisor for Cisco. And as an advisor for Cisco, I think she did a really great job. But that's not what I'm judging her on here. I'm judging her on as a science officer. And again, as a science officer, I was never that super impressed with her abilities. Again, she kind of just did the bare minimum. I mean, there wasn't that much sciencey stuff to do on Deep Space Nine, to be fair. But when there was, like when the weird thing came that was granting everyone's imaginations and making them come true, like, she wasn't very helpful in that situation, or the time where Cisco was studying the that Bajoran artifact where energy, like he broke it in half and energy came out of it. She wasn't very helpful in that situation. She was just like, "You're not getting another urge, are you, Benjamin?" Like, she's funny, but not that great of a science officer. So I had, as much as I like her, as much as it pains me, I had to put her at number 6. So number 5, Agnes Jaradi, and I will re-emphasize this isn't how much I like the character, because she would be at the bottom of my list if it was how much I like the character, and it's not how well she works with others, because she fucking murdered another scientist, her own mentor, because she got driven insane by this vision, but then all of a sudden she was fine after the vision, but whatever. As a scientist, though, she was actually very effective. She was actually very helpful in many cases, setting aside the murder. And she was a very effective cyberneticist. She was pretty genius. I gotta say, she was portrayed as more genius than Jadzia or Harry. So, gotta give her credit there. So that's why she lands at number 5. Number 4 is Michael Burnham. Now, I have to go by how she's portrayed on the show, and on the show she's kind of portrayed as, I hate to say it, it's so commonplace, but has I'll avoid this specific phrase, but you know the phrase I'm thinking of, has a Wesley Crusher type, let me put it that way, as a type who saves the universe every single time, who knows absolutely everything. So that's what I had to go off of, so I had to put her high. However, she is not getting higher than 4 because contrived writing only gets you so far. Because, again, this is another character who is kind of a jack-of-all-trades type. As I said, a lot of the time she acts more in the command position and not in a science officer type position. But the times we do see her act as a science officer, particularly the one that sticks in my mind, is when they're studying the tardigrade, where she was one of the few Starfleet officers there who actually stood up for the fucking tardigrade and say, "Hey, this is a sentient species, we should not be torturing it." So I gotta give her a lot of credit for doing what should be obvious, actually the bare minimum. Fuck you, Saru, anyway. Sorry, I'm never gonna let that go. But anyway, and so she did a really great job there, and the time where she figured out how to defeat Harry Mudd when he was using the time loop device and stuff like that, and of course her figuring out how the whole Red Angel thing was going on. But again, a Wesley Crusher type. I'm going to use that phrase instead of the other one. You know the other one. But anyway, let me get into my number 3, which is T'Pol. Now, I talked several times about, people who are jack of all trades are more of a command position. T'Pol was the first officer, but her other function was the science officer. And she functioned very well in this position. She was very reliable. Again, it is very helpful during the Xindi conflict when they were in what they called the Expanse, where there was these weird spheres causing everyone to freaking die. Like, she was extremely helpful in that and helped defeat the sphere builders. So, she was. I gotta put her up pretty high for that. So she's my number 3. But of course, the better version of T'Pol, we'll get into my number 2, is Spock. Spock, of course, is a fantastic science officer, but again, a lot of times he functioned more as the first officer. But he was always very helpful, coming up with great theories to help Captain Kirk. He was the logical type who kept Kirk grounded and was able to look at these weird science things from a very analytical mind. So have to give a lot of credit to Mr. Spock, my number 2. But I know a lot of people will be like, oh, he should be number 1. But I disagree. My number 1 science/ops officer is Data. I'm sorry, but I have to give it to Data because he crunches numbers like no other, even better than Mr. Spock does. I'm sorry. And he's able to come up with very innovative solutions to these problems. And he's able to solve any scientific mystery like that, where I'm sorry, sometimes Spock is stumped. I'm sorry, sometimes he is. But Data, never stumped. He always is on top of things, always coming up with instant solutions, like the time where he figured out how to get out of the time loop by realizing that 3 stood for the 3 pips on Riker's pen. Aha, see what you did there, Data. So, I'm sorry, but I gotta give it to Data, and I'm starting to realize now that the Next Generation officers are winning these lists the most, but hey, I don't know. Maybe I just think that crew is most qualified. But I don't know. In my opinion, best science/ops officer is Data from Star Trek Next Generation. Anyway, that is it for my ranking of these science officers. Thanks so much for watching. And as I said, I'm going to continue onwards. I'm going to do helmsmen, and then there's tactical/security officers, and then there's counselor/morale officer, that sort of thing. So yeah, gonna see this through. Anyway, so check out my channel. Keep an eye on my channel for that. Also check out my channel as I cover many other Star Trek videos, and also do videos in other shows like The Expanse, Breaking Bad, The Outer Limits, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.